In this video, we will learn all about variables in C#. Variables are containers that have a name attached to it, and they contain some information. We also need to specify what type of information does it contain. Is it an integer, a float, or a string? So variables are really important. They let us store some data that we can then use by calling that variable's name. We can also edit the variable, so initially it might store the integer 1, and later in the script we can make it contain the integer 5 instead. This is the syntax for writing variables in C#. We first of all specify its type. So for now we learned about integers, floats, and strings. So we can write the keywords int, float, or string. Then we need to choose a name. So this can be really anything you want, as long as there are no spaces and that it does not start with a number. The convention is to start the variable name with a lowercase letter, and then if you want multiple words, to make the first letters capitalized. Once we've got the type and name of the variable, we can add an equal sign and then choose the value we want. Finally, add a semicolon at the end of the line. So in this case, I've got a string variable called myname that is equal to the string Liam. Make sure the information you store in your variable corresponds to the type of the variable. So if your variable type is a string, you can only put a string inside of it, otherwise you'll get an error message. Note that you don't have to assign a value to your variable. You can simply put the semicolon right after the variable name. If you do so, your variable will contain the default information for the type of variable that you chose. So for integers and floats, the default value is 0, and for strings, it's an empty string. With our variable created, we can print it out by typing the name of the variable. So in this case, if we print the myname variable, it will actually print out the value of myname, which is the string Liam. We can also edit the value of an already existing variable by simply writing the name of the variable, adding an equal sign, and then specifying the new value. Okay, that's enough talking, let's get some real practice using variables. Inside of my Unity project, I'll right-click to create a new C# script called variables. Let's then double-click on it to open it up inside of Visual Studio. We are going to make a tiny story game. Okay, so by convention, we usually write our variables at the top of our script. Let's create 5 variables. The first one will be a string variable called name, which I'll set equal to Liam. Then I will create another string variable called weapon, and this one I'll give it the value of wooden sword. I will make a int variable called health that I'll set to 10. After that, we will create a float variable called speed that I'll set to 5.5f. Lastly, I'll create another integer variable called enemy damage that I'll set to 2. The first thing I'll do in the start function is print welcome and then add to it the name variable. Don't forget to put a space at the end of welcome. Then we will print a message saying the enemy found you and you were too slow to run away from him because your speed is only, and then add the speed variable. Now here we are adding a string with a float together, and we aren't allowed to do that. So to fix it, we will convert the float to a string by adding .toString followed with a pair of parentheses after the speed variable. Then we'll update our health variable to be equal to the health variable minus the enemy damage variable. So our player has got 10 health and our enemy damage is 2. So the new value for health will be 10 minus 2, which is 8. There exists a shorthand for this line, which is health minus equals enemy damage. Both ways are completely valid, but you'll find it more often written like this. Once we have dealt the damage, we will write a new print saying the enemy dealt you plus the enemy damage plus, so you have got, plus the health variable plus health left. Don't forget to add the .toString with a pair of parentheses after the enemy damage and health variables. Finally, we will write, after much struggle you are finally able to kill him with your, plus the weapon variable. Alright, so let's run our little story inside of Unity. So I will select my game object that has the string script attached to it. I will remove it by clicking on this icon and then choosing remove component. And then I'll drag and drop our new variable script onto it. If we now press play and open up the console, we can read our little story. First of all, we are saying hello plus the name variable, which in this case was equal to Liam. Then we are saying that an enemy found us and that we were too slow because we only had 5.5 speed, which was our speed variable that we converted to a string. After that, we removed the enemy damage variable from our health variable, and so we are printing out that we took 2 damage and that our new health is equal to 8. And finally, we announce happily that we killed the enemy with our weapon variable. In this case, it was the wooden sword. Okay, so now you can have fun by changing the values of the variables and then pressing play to see the changes it makes. So this might be quite annoying to always have to go back inside of the script and change the values there. Thankfully, there is something we can do in Unity that is really amazing. All we will do is add the public keyword to all our variables at the very beginning of the line. Now save the script. In Unity, you can select the game object that has the variable script attached to it, and you'll see that all the variables show up inside of the inspector. Then we can change the values directly from there. This is a really powerful feature of the Unity game engine. Alright, so let's conclude. We first explained that variables act like containers who have a name and a specific type of information that they can contain. We then saw how we can write variables in C# by first of all specifying the type, so either int, float or string, then typing a name, and finally putting an equal sign and choosing the desired value, which has to correspond to the variable's type. Remember that if you don't choose any value, C# will turn them into the default values. Then we saw how we can retrieve the value from a variable by simply writing the variable name, and we also understood that we can edit variables just by writing the variable name followed with an equal sign and then the new value. Finally, we trained by creating a small scenario story game, but most importantly, we saw how powerful the public keyword is. Just by typing public at the start of our variable declaration, we will then be able to change the value directly inside of Unity. Finally, we saw how we can convert a number into a string by using .toString after the number. Anyways, that marks the end of this video on variables. I'll see you in the next one where you'll have an exercise to complete. I'll see you over there.